The distant crack of thunder silenced the saloon as Madeline Blackburn stared at her father in disbelief, his words hanging in the stale air between them like a noose. "You've promised me to Silas Crawford. The man is 30 years my senior and cruel as a rattlesnake." Tucson, Arizona Territory, 1878. The unforgiving desert sun had baked the town for weeks, leaving its inhabitants as parched and desperate as the cracked earth beneath their boots. Thomas Blackburn, once a prosperous rancher, now drowning in gambling debts and whiskey, could no longer meet Madeline's gaze. "It's done, Maddie. The papers are signed. You'll marry Crawford next Sunday." His weathered hand trembled around his glass. "He's agreed to clear my debts, all of them." Madeline's throat tightened. At 22, she'd helped her father run their struggling ranch since her mother's passing 5 years prior. She'd nursed him through bouts of consumption, kept the books when his eyesight began to fail, and mended his shirts when his hands grew too arthritic to hold a needle. But this betrayal cut deeper than any sacrifice she'd made. "And what of my life, Father? My dreams?" Her voice remained steady despite the tremor in her heart. "Dreams don't feed us, girl. Dreams don't keep the bank from taking our land." He drained his whiskey, signaling to the barkeep for another. "Crawford's offering security. He's got the largest cattle operation this side of the Catalinas, and the vilest reputation in 3 counties. Madeline gathered her shawl around her shoulders, ignoring the curious glances from the other patrons. "I've heard how he treats his ranch hands, how he treats his women." Thomas Blackburn slammed his fist on the table. "Enough. The arrangement benefits us both. You'll learn to accept it." Outside, the first drops of rain pelted the dusty street as Madeline rushed toward home, tears blurring her vision. The ranch sat 3 miles outside town, and the storm was gathering strength. Lightning split the darkening sky, illuminating the distant mountains that had always represented freedom to her. Now they seemed like prison walls. By the time she reached the ranch, rain had soaked through her dress and loosened her carefully pinned hair. The small adobe house, once her sanctuary, now felt like a cage. Inside, she lit a lamp and sank into her mother's rocking chair, allowing herself to weep freely. Silas Crawford. His name alone sent a chill down her spine. Twice widowed, with rumors darker than a moonless night about how his wives had met their ends. 63 years old, with hands like gnarled roots and eyes that undressed every woman in town. The thought of being bound to him made her physically ill. 3 days passed in a haze of dread. Thomas barely spoke to her, spending most of his time in town, presumably drinking away his guilt. Madeline moved through her chores mechanically, feeding the chickens, tending her small garden, and preparing meals neither of them truly ate. On the 4th night, while a late spring thunderstorm lashed against the windows, she made her decision. She couldn't marry Crawford. She'd rather face the unknown wilderness than a lifetime chained to a monster. Madeline packed quickly a change of clothes, her mother's cameo brooch, the small amount of money she'd secretly saved from selling eggs and vegetables in town. She penned a brief note to her father. "I cannot do this. Forgive me." Just past midnight, as she prepared to slip away, the sound of hoofbeats approached through the driving rain. Fear seized her had Crawford come to claim his bride early. She doused the lamp and peered through the window curtain. A lone rider emerged from the fog, his form materializing like a specter against the stormy night. Not Crawford's bulky frame, but someone leaner, younger. The stranger dismounted, leading his exhausted horse toward their small barn. Curiosity overcame caution. Madeline wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and stepped onto the porch, lantern held high. "Who goes there?" she called, voice stronger than she felt. The man turned, water streaming from the brim of his hat. "Apologies, madam. Didn't mean to disturb you. Name's Vincent Norwood. My horse is near lame and I spotted your light. Was hoping for shelter till the storm passes." As he stepped into the circle of lantern light, Madeline saw a face weathered by sun and wind, yet handsome in its rugged way. Eyes that seemed to shift between gray and blue, like the sky before a storm. "He couldn't be more than 30. There's no one else here but me," she said, caution returning. "My father's in town." Vincent removed his hat, revealing dark hair plastered to his forehead. "I understand your concern, Miss Blackburn, Madeline Blackburn. Miss Blackburn. I assure you I mean no harm. If you'd prefer, I can make do in your barn with my horse." Something in his direct gaze, honest and lacking the predatory gleam she'd grown accustomed to seeing in men's eyes, made her hesitate. "The barn leaks something terrible in this weather." "You can dry yourself by the fire, Mr. Norwood, while I tend to your horse." Relief crossed his features. "Much obliged, though I couldn't let a lady see to my mount while I warm myself." "I've been tending horses since I could walk, Mr. Norwood. Besides, you look half drowned." A smile crinkled the corners of his eyes. "As the lady wishes." Inside, Vincent stood awkwardly by the hearth, his tall frame making the modest room seem smaller. Madeline busied herself making coffee, hyper-aware of the stranger's presence. His saddle-bags and rifle rested by the door within reach, but not threateningly so. "You're traveling late," she observed, handing him a steaming cup. "Trying to outrun the storm. Failed spectacularly, as you can see." He accepted the coffee gratefully, careful not to touch her fingers. "Where are you headed?" "California, eventually. Taking my time, though." He sipped the coffee, sighing appreciatively. "I've a cousin near San Francisco who's offered me work on his ranch." "You're a rancher, then?" A shadow crossed his face. "Used to be. Had a spread in Texas. Lost it during the drought 2 years back." Madeline nodded, understanding too well how quickly fortunes could turn. "And now?" "Now I take work where I can find it. Breaking horses mainly, some cattle driving. Earned enough to buy that ornery stallion outside and head west for a fresh start." Something about his straightforward manner put her at ease. Unlike most men who pass through, he didn't boast or embellish his circumstances. "You were leaving," he said suddenly, nodding toward her packed bag by the door. Madeline stiffened. "I was considering it." Vincent didn't press, just studied her with those storm-colored eyes. "Forgive me for saying so, but a young woman traveling alone in these parts is taking a considerable risk." "Sometimes the risk of staying put is greater," she replied softly. A moment of understanding passed between them, silent but profound. He nodded once, respecting her privacy. "The storm's not letting up," she said, changing the subject. "You're welcome to the barn loft for the night. It's the driest spot." "Your kindness is appreciated, Miss Blackburn." Morning brought clearing skies and a quietude that seemed to amplify every sound: the chickens clucking in the yard, the creak of the windmill, the soft whinny of horses in the barn. Madeline rose early, her planned escape temporarily forgotten as she prepared a simple breakfast. Vincent emerged from the barn as she was gathering eggs, his hair still damp from washing at the pump. "Your hospitality saved me from a miserable night, Miss Blackburn. I've tended to my horse, but he'll need another day or two before he's fit for travel." She straightened, basket on her hip. "You're welcome to stay until he's recovered." "That's generous, but I wouldn't want to impose." "It's no imposition. I could use the help with some repairs before." She trailed off, unwilling to complete the thought. Vincent studied her face. "Before you leave," Madeline sighed. "It's complicated, Mr. Norwood." "Vincent, please." He took the egg basket from her. "And complicated situations are something of a specialty of mine." Over breakfast, Madeline found herself telling this stranger her predicament. The words poured out, weeks of fear and resentment crystallizing as she described her father's arrangement with Crawford. "The wedding's set for Sunday," she concluded. 5 days from now." Vincent's expression had darkened progressively throughout her tale. "Your father had no right to promise you to anyone, let alone a man with such a reputation. He believes he's securing my future. By selling you like cattle." Vincent's hand tightened around his coffee cup. "Forgive my bluntness, but that's what this sounds like." "I've tried reasoning with him. Crawford's paid off his gambling debts, considerable ones. He feels honor-bound." "There's no honor in this arrangement, Miss Blackburn." Vincent's voice was gentle despite the harshness of his words. "Where were you planning to go?" Madeline looked away. "I hadn't thought that far ahead. My cousin lives in Santa Fe, but that's hundreds of miles. A journey you couldn't safely make alone." She nodded, the reality of her situation settling like a stone in her stomach. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. "I could escort you to Santa Fe." "It would delay my plans, but I can't in good conscience leave you to this fate." Surprise rendered her momentarily speechless. "You do that for a stranger?" His eyes met hers, earnest and direct. "My mother was forced into marriage to a cruel man. I was 14 when he beat her for the last time. I couldn't help her then. Perhaps I can help you now." The simple honesty of his offer touched something deep within Madeline. "I couldn't ask that of you." "You didn't ask. I offered." He rose, gathering their empty plates. "Think on it. Your father returns today, likely, though he sometimes stays in town when he's deep in his cups. Then we have time to consider options." They spent the day working side by side. Vincent repaired the leaky barn roof, fixed the broken corral gate, and split enough firewood to last weeks. Madeline found herself watching him when he wasn't looking, the confident way he handled tools, the gentle manner he displayed with the animals, the respect with which he treated her. By late afternoon, a comfortable rhythm had developed between them, conversation flowing naturally as they worked. Vincent told her of his travels across the territories, of the characters he'd met and places he'd seen. Madeline shared stories of her mother, of happier times on the ranch before debt and drink had consumed her father. "You have a gift with horses," he remarked, watching her gentle their temperamental mare. "Crawford doesn't deserve such a treasure." Color rose in her cheeks. "You flatter me, sir." "Not flattery if it's true." His smile made her heart quicken in a way she'd never experienced. As sunset painted the desert in fiery hues, they sat on the porch, sharing a simple supper of beans and cornbread. "I've decided," Madeline said quietly. "I'll leave with you tomorrow if the offer still stands." Vincent nodded, relief evident in his expression. "It stands. We'll leave at first light, before your father returns." The sound of approaching horses shattered their plans. 3 riders emerged from the gathering dusk, the lead figure unmistakable even at a distance, Silas Crawford, flanked by 2 of his ranch hands. "He's not due here until Sunday," Madeline whispered, panic rising in her throat. Vincent stood, positioning himself slightly in front of her. "Stay calm, follow my lead." Crawford reined in his horse, cold eyes taking in the scene. Madeline and the stranger sharing a meal, evidence of repairs around the property. His thin lips twisted in displeasure. "Miss Blackburn," he called, voice like gravel. "Your father mentioned you were alone out here. I see he was mistaken." Madeline rose, willing her voice not to tremble. "Mr. Crawford, this is unexpected." Crawford dismounted, his movements betraying his age despite his attempt at vigor. "Thought I'd check on my betrothed, ensure she's properly provided for." His gaze shifted to Vincent. "Don't believe we've met, stranger." Vincent Norwood. He stepped forward, offering a hand that Crawford ignored. "Just passing through. Miss Blackburn kindly offered shelter when my horse came up lame." Crawford's eyes narrowed. Mighty cozy for a passing stranger. Mr. Norwood has been helping with repairs, Madeline interjected. Nothing improper has occurred. A cruel smile twisted Crawford's features. That's so. Well, no matter. I've decided to move up our nuptials, my dear. Your father's agreed. We'll be married tomorrow noon instead of Sunday. Madeline's blood ran cold. Tomorrow, but the arrangements all taken care of. Crawford reached for her arm, his grip painful. Pack your things. You'll be coming with me tonight. Stay at my ranch until the ceremony. Vincent stepped between them. The lady seems reluctant, sir. Perhaps you should respect her wishes. Crawford's hand moved to the pistol at his hip. This doesn't concern you, Drifter. I suggest you mount up and continue drifting. I'm afraid I can't do that. Vincent's stance shifted subtly, ready. Not while you're manhandling a lady who's shown me kindness. The two ranch hands dismounted, hands hovering near their weapons. The tension in the air thickened. You're outnumbered, boy, Crawford sneered, and outgunned. Perhaps. Vincent remained calm. But I reckon I could put a bullet in you before your men drew leather. Madeline's heart hammered in her chest. This would end in bloodshed if she didn't intervene. Mr. Crawford, she said, forcing evenness into her tone, I'll not be leaving tonight. It wouldn't be proper to stay unchaperoned at your ranch before we're wed. Crawford's eyes never left Vincent. My housekeeper will act as chaperone. I need time to gather my belongings properly. I'll be ready tomorrow morning. For a tense moment, Crawford seemed ready to refuse. Then, with visible effort, he relaxed his posture. Very well. I'll send a wagon at first light. Don't disappoint me, Madeline. His gaze shifted back to Vincent. And you'd best be gone by then, Norwood, if you value your hide. After they'd ridden away, Madeline's legs gave out. She sank onto the porch step, trembling. Vincent knelt beside her. We need to leave tonight. She looked up, fear and determination warring in her eyes. Yes. They worked quickly, gathering only essentials. Vincent saddled both his stallion and Madeline's mare, securing their supplies. By midnight they were ready. The storm's returning, Vincent noted, eyeing the distant lightning. It'll cover our tracks but make for hard riding. Madeline cast one last look at the only home she'd ever known. I'm ready. They rode east, away from Crawford's ranch, into the gathering storm. Thunder rolled across the desert as fog began to rise from the still warm earth, creating an otherworldly landscape. Vincent led the way, occasionally reaching back to ensure Madeline was still close behind. The midnight fog thickened, swirling around the horse's legs, obscuring the path ahead. Rain began to fall, first as gentle drops, then in sheets that rendered visibility almost non-existent. We need shelter, Vincent called over the storm's fury. There's a line shack about 2 miles ahead if I've got my bearings right, Madeline nodded, too cold and wet to respond verbally. She trusted him implicitly, a realization that might have surprised her had she time to examine it. The abandoned line shack materialized like a mirage through the fog and rain. Vincent helped Madeline dismount, her limbs stiff with cold. Inside, the small structure offered shelter from the elements, though wind whistled through cracks in the walls. Vincent worked quickly, starting a small fire in the rusted stove with dry wood he found stacked in a corner. The feeble warmth was a blessing after the bone-chilling ride. You should change into dry clothes, he said, turning his back to give her privacy. I'll tend to the horses. When he returned, Madeline had changed into her spare dress and was huddled near the stove, her wet hair hanging in dark waves down her back. Something shifted in Vincent's expression as he looked at her, a softening, a recognition that made her breath catch. We've got maybe 4 hours until dawn, he said, hanging his soaked coat near the stove. You should rest. I don't think I could sleep if I tried. She made room for him beside the stove. Do you think they'll follow us in this weather? Vincent sat, careful to maintain a respectful distance. Not tonight. But Crawford strikes me as a man who doesn't take kindly to losing what he considers his property. I was never his, Madeline said fiercely. No, Vincent agreed, a smile touching his lips. I don't believe you could ever belong to anyone but yourself, Miss Blackburn. The simple truth of his words warmed her more than the fire. After all this, I think you might call me Madeline. Madeline, he repeated, her name like a caress in his low voice. They talked through the night, the storm raging outside while something quieter but no less powerful bloomed between them. Vincent spoke of his dreams for a small ranch of his own someday, of raising horses rather than cattle. Madeline shared her love of botany, how she'd cultivated desert plants that others considered worthless. My mother taught me their medicinal properties, she explained. The Pima women showed her which plants could heal, which could harm. A valuable knowledge, Vincent said, and rare. As the first hint of dawn lightened the eastern sky, the storm began to abate. They prepared to continue their journey, both aware that Crawford's men would be close behind once they discovered Madeline gone. Santa Fe is still our destination, Vincent asked as they saddled the horses. Madeline hesitated. I'm not certain anymore. Crawford has connections throughout the territory. My cousin might not be able to protect me. Vincent's expression grew thoughtful. I have a proposition then. It's unconventional but might offer a solution. I'm listening. Marry me instead. Madeline stared at him, certain she'd misheard. What? Vincent stepped closer, earnest. As husband and wife, we'd have legal protection Crawford couldn't easily overcome. We could continue to California together. But we barely know each other. True enough. His eyes held hers. But I know you're brave and kind. I know you deserve better than what fate handed you. And I know that in just one day you've awakened feelings in me I thought long dead. Madeline's heart raced. You can't mean that. I do. He took her hand gently. I'm not proposing a love match, Madeline, though I believe that could grow in time. I'm offering partnership, respect, and protection. A chance for both of us to start anew. The sincerity in his voice touched her deeply. This wasn't a calculated move like Crawford's proposition. This was a genuine offer from a man who'd risked his life to help her. And if I wish to continue to Santa Fe alone once we're safe, then I'll escort you there and wish you well. He squeezed her hand lightly. This isn't another cage, Madeline, just a different path. She studied his face, searching for deceit and finding none. Yes, she said finally, I accept your proposition. Relief washed over his features. We'll find a preacher in the next town. For now, we need to keep moving. They rode hard through the morning, pushing the horses as much as they dared across the rain-softened desert. By noon, they'd reached a small settlement called Hacienda, little more than a trading post, a saloon, and a handful of adobe buildings clustered around a dusty square. The local justice of the peace, a former Army chaplain named Everett, agreed to marry them immediately upon hearing a simplified version of their circumstances. Standing in his sparse parlor, with his wife and the general store owner as witnesses, Madeline and Vincent exchanged vows. With this ring, I thee wed, Vincent said, sliding a simple silver band onto her finger, a ring he'd purchased from the store owner's wife moments before the ceremony. When Everett pronounced them husband and wife, Vincent's kiss was gentle, respectful, yet sent an unexpected warmth cascading through Madeline's body. Mrs. Norwood, he murmured against her ear, I believe we should continue our journey. Your former suitor won't be far behind. They purchased supplies, Vincent using most of his carefully saved funds to ensure they had what they needed for the long journey ahead. As they prepared to depart, the thunder of approaching horses drew everyone's attention. Crawford and 6 armed men galloped into town, their horses lathered and wild-eyed from hard riding. Spotting Madeline and Vincent emerging from the general store, Crawford drew his pistol. "There's the thief who stole my bride," he bellowed, dismounting awkwardly. The townspeople scattered, seeking cover. Vincent stepped in front of Madeline, but she moved beside him instead, her chin raised defiantly. "I was never your bride, Mr. Crawford," she called clearly. "And now I never will be. I'm Mrs. Vincent Norwood, legally wed this very hour." Crawford's face contorted with rage. "Lies. Your father signed a contract. My father can't sign away my freedom," Madeline interrupted. "The law recognizes my marriage to Mr. Norwood. You have no claim on me." Justice Everett stepped forward, Bible still in hand. "The lady speaks truth, sir. I performed the ceremony myself, all legal and proper." Crawford's men exchanged uneasy glances. They'd come to retrieve a runaway bride, not challenge a lawful marriage. "Crawford," Vincent said evenly, "it's finished. Return to your ranch, find another woman to terrorize." For a moment, violence hung in the air like the charged atmosphere before a lightning strike. Then, with a guttural curse, Crawford holstered his weapon. "You'll regret crossing me," he spat. "Both of you." "Perhaps," Vincent replied, "but I doubt it." Crawford and his men departed in a cloud of dust and profanity, leaving the townspeople murmuring and Madeline trembling with relief and residual fear. "He'll be back," she whispered to Vincent. "Not where we're going." He helped her mount her horse. "California's a long way from his influence." They rode west under clearing skies, husband and wife in name if not yet in truth. The tension of pursuit gradually eased as miles stretched between them and Tucson. Each night they made camp, careful to maintain proper distance despite their legal union. On the fifth night, as they sat beside their small fire in the shelter of a rocky outcropping, Madeline finally asked the question that had lingered since their hasty wedding. "Why did you really help me, Vincent? The truth." He gazed into the flames, considering. "When I saw you that night, standing on your porch with that lantern held high, defiance in every line of your body despite your fear, you reminded me there's still beauty in this harsh world." "Is that all?" "I reminded you of something." Vincent looked up, his eyes reflecting the firelight. "No. You awakened something I thought died years ago, hope. The belief that maybe I could be more than a drifter with nowhere to belong." Madeline moved closer, the wall between them crumbling. "And now, do you regret our arrangement?" "Not for a moment." His voice dropped lower. "Though I worry you might. I'm not a wealthy man, Madeline. I can't offer you the comforts Crawford could. Comfort purchased with my freedom and dignity is no comfort at all." She took his hand, feeling the calluses that spoke of honest work. "I'd rather face hardship with a good man than luxury with a monster." Something shifted between them, a barrier dissolving. Vincent raised her hand to his lips. "I made a vow to protect you, to respect you, but I didn't promise honesty about my feelings." "Tell me," she whispered. "I'm falling in love with you, Madeline Norwood, against all sense and reason after mere days." The confession, so simply stated, unlocked something within her. "Then we're both being unreasonable, because I find myself feeling the same." When he kissed her then, it wasn't the chaste touch of their wedding, but something deeper, a promise of things to come. That night, beneath a canopy of stars, their marriage became true in every sense. The journey to California took weeks, each day strengthening the bond between them. They faced hardships, dangerous river crossings, a rattlesnake that nearly struck Vincent's leg, a band of outlaws they narrowly avoided. Through it all, they discovered in each other not just passion, but partnership. By the time they reached the lush valleys of Northern California in late summer, Madeline knew she carried their child. The news, whispered to Vincent as they crested the final ridge overlooking his cousin's ranch, brought tears to his eyes. "A family," he said wonderingly, hand resting on her still flat stomach. "Something I never thought to have." Madeline covered his hand with hers. "Something I never thought to want until you." Vincent's cousin welcomed them warmly, offering Vincent the position of horse trainer and a small cabin on the property. Within months, they had saved enough to purchase a modest parcel of adjoining land, where Madeline began cultivating the medicinal plants she'd studied. Their daughter, Sarah, was born the following spring, strong and healthy like her parents, with Vincent's stormy eyes and Madeline's determination. 2 years later, as they sat on the porch of the home they'd built together, watching Sarah toddle after butterflies in the garden Madeline had created, a letter arrived from Tucson. Thomas Blackburn had died, leaving the ranch to his daughter. Silas Crawford had passed 6 months earlier, thrown from his horse while drunk. "We could sell it," Vincent suggested. "Use the money to expand our breeding program." Madeline considered, then shook her head. "Let's donate it to the mission school for the Pima children." "My mother would have wanted that." Vincent smiled, understanding her completely without need for explanation, the gift of their deepening love. "As you wish, my love." That night, as they lay together in the quiet darkness, Madeline traced the lines of her husband's face. "Do you ever think about that night, when you rode through the fog and changed my life?" Vincent caught her hand, kissing her palm. "I was simply seeking shelter from a storm. Instead, I found home." "We both did," Madeline whispered, nestling against him as their daughter slept peacefully in the next room and the future stretched before them, no longer fearsome but full of promise.